everybody. Welcome back to Carrie's Corner. I think this is day 20, where we're continuing our read of The Pushcart War by Jean Merrill and illustrated by Ronnie Solbert. We're starting at chapter 6, The Peanut Butter Speech. One of the first people to speak out against the growing danger was a man named Archie Love. Archie Love was running for mayor at the time, and he promised to reduce the number of trucks in the streets. It looked briefly as if Archie Love might be elected on the strength of this promise alone. But that was before Archie's opponent, Emmett P. Cudd, who was already mayor and did not want to lose his job, made his famous peanut butter speech in Union Square. Mayor Cudd repeated the peanut butter speech 90 times in 1 week. It went more or less as follows. Friends and New Yorkers, New York is one of the biggest cities in the USA. We are proud of that fact. What makes a city big? Big business, naturally. And what is the difference between big business and small business? It is this. If you order 14 cartons of peanut butter, you are running a small business. If you order 400 cartons of peanut butter, you are running a big business. 14 cartons of peanut butter you can get delivered in a station wagon, but for 400 cartons of peanut butter, you need a truck. And you need a big truck. Big truck means progress. My opponent, Archie Love, is against trucks. He is therefore against progress. Maybe he's even against peanut butter. Naturally, all the truck drivers voted to re-elect Mayor Cudd, and so did a lot of other people. Very few people wanted to be against progress. No one wanted to be against peanut butter, and everyone wanted to be proud of their city, because they always had been. Thus, Archie Love did not get elected, and the trucks kept getting bigger. As the truck increased in size, traffic, as Archie Love had predicted, grew steadily worse until, in the spring before the Pushcart War, the city was one big traffic jam most of the time. One day it took a taxi 4 hours to drive 5 blocks. The passenger in the taxi was Professor Lyman Cumberly, who did not complain because he was working on his large object theory of history and found the situation interesting from a scientific point of view. During this ride, Professor Cumberly fell into conversation with an important young man from Seattle who was trapped in an adjoining taxi. The young man was shocked that so many New Yorkers accepted the terrible conditions in their streets without protest, and Professor Cumberly recalls that the visitor had very definite ideas what should be done about the trucks. In fact, encouraged by Professor Cumberly's interest, the young man flew back to Seattle and wrote a book. The book, called The Enemy in the Streets, was a fearless attack on the trucks. However, as the author was unknown, the book did not receive much notice at the time it was published. It is remembered today largely because the author is now President of the United States. Chapter 7. There's a little teeny picture on Chapter 7. The words that triggered the war. Wenda Gambling's innocent remark. What finally brought matters to a head was a television program called The Day the Traffic Stopped. The day before the program, the traffic had stopped entirely, and one of the television stations had hurriedly called in a panel of experts to explain why. The members of the panel were Robert Alexander Wrightson, Traffic Commissioner of New York; Alexander P. Wolfson, head of Wolfson & Wolfson Specialist in Traffic Conditions; Dr. Wolf Alexander, a traffic psychologist; Wenda Gambling, a well-known movie star. Wenda Gambling was hardly an expert on traffic, but as the 3 other panel members were elderly men, one stout, one bald, and one nearsighted, the moderator of the program felt that the panel would be more interesting if Wenda were at the table. In introducing Wenda, the moderator of the program said, "As we all know, Miss Gambling's new movie, The Streets of New York, is being shot on the streets of New York. And as the streets of New York are the subject of our discussion tonight, it is very appropriate that she should be here." Wenda tactfully left most of the talking to the experts. Each of the 3 men had a different theory as to why the traffic had stopped. Robert Alexander Wrightson said that there was no cause for alarm, that the whole thing was a simple matter of what he liked to call the density of moving objects. Alexander P. Wolfson disagreed. He said the problem involved nothing more than a predictable increase in the number of unmoving objects. Dr. Wolf Alexander said it did not matter whether the objects were moving or unmoving, as the whole thing could be easily solved by a more thorough conditioning of drivers to hopeless situations. "And what do you think, Miss Gambling?" asked the moderator as the three experts began to argue with each other. "I don't know what they are talking about," said Wenda Gambling. "Well," said the moderator, who was not quite sure of himself, "I believe our subject this evening was traffic." "Oh," said Wenda Gambling. "Well, I think that there are too many trucks and that the trucks are too big." Since most of the television audience had been watching Wenda Gambling rather than the experts, and since everyone watching did know what Wenda was talking about, this one remark received more attention than anything else that was said on the program. Before the program was off the air, over 5,000 viewers had called the station to say that they agreed with Wenda Gambling. Professor Lyman Cumberly has suggested that except for Wenda Gambling's innocent remark, there might never have been a pushcart war. Instead, says Professor Cumberly, there's a little taxi in between those two big trucks. Says Professor Cumberly, the trucks would have simply gone on taking over the city, crowding out the taxis, buses, cars, and finally the people themselves. No one would have challenged them until it was too late. It would, Professor Cumberly believes, have been the end of life in New York as we know it. But what Wenda Gambling had stated the danger for all to hear, war was inevitable. We're going to do a little bit of Chapter 8, and then we're going to end for today. Oh, there's no picture there. Chapter 8, The Secret Meeting and the Declaration of War, excerpts from the diary of Joey Caflis. The truck drivers themselves were the first to grasp the meaning of the widespread response to Wenda Gambling's remark. The day after the television program, representatives of all the trucking firms in the city held a secret meeting. The meeting was organized by the Three, as the owners of the three largest trucking firms in the city were called. The three were Mo Mammoth of Mammoth Moving, or Big Mo as his drivers called him, Walter Sweet of Tiger Trucking, who preferred to be known as the Tiger, and Louis Livergreen of Lima, Lower East Side Moving Association. The plotting of the pushcart war and the truckers' strategy throughout was, for the most part, the work of the Three. Big Mo generally served as spokesman for the Three, and it was Big Mo who presided over the secret meeting. The meeting was held in an underground garage owned by Mammoth Moving. It was at this meeting that a young truck driver named Joey Caflis had the nerve to stand up and say, "People are right. Traffic is lousy and there are too many trucks." Joey, who worked for Tiger Trucking, was fired shortly after this meeting. Fortunately, Joey kept a diary. The diary was something that he had started to pass the time when his truck was stalled in a traffic jam. It is from this diary that we have a first-hand account of what happened as the first secret meeting and in the days that followed. Here are some excerpts from Joey Caflis' diary dated the day after the secret meeting. February 15th, 9th Avenue and 66th Street en route to 9th and 86th with 24 pipe or organs, 11:15 a.m. Looks like a long tie-up ahead, so I may as well put down a few more facts about the meeting last night. After I've said, traffic is lousy, there is a big silence. Everybody looks at me very surprised, and several guys look as if I have hurt their feelings. Then Big Mo, who is running the meeting, gets up and growls. By that time, I mean he clears his throat in a particular way Big Mo has of clearing his big throat. It is as if you were racing your engine a little bit to test whether you have the power and the engine is warmed up. "Now traffic maybe is not so good," Big Mo says. For a minute I think he's going to agree with me, but instead he glares at me and says, and he is nicely warmed up by now, "I say, Mr. Caflis, that is all a question of who is to blame for the traffic situation. Why pick on the poor trucks?" When Big Mo says, "poor trucks," I laugh out loud, but nobody hears me because everybody is cheering for Big Mo. That's where we're going to stop. That's in the middle of this chapter. Here's a picture of Big Mo and the three trucker people. So stay tuned for tomorrow where we continue in this meeting for the Pushcart War by Jean Merrill. See you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye. That's the froggy saying goodbye. See you tomorrow.